is Gone Racin, VSiN's premier NASCAR betting podcast. Here are your hosts, former NASCAR driver Brendan Gaughan and Las Vegas Motor Speedway's Jeff Motley.
Well, it's kind of Jeff Motley today. Hi, Jeff. You look so different today.
You know, I was growing the beard out a little bit. I don't think Jeff wants my record this year in the season standings.
I don't think anybody wants your record. Even the listeners don't want it.
No.
Wyatt Tomchek sitting in the fabulous VSiN studio for our good friend, Mr. Jeff Motley. Rob behind the counter. Just so you know where Wyatt normally sits, we have Rob today.
He's the GOAT of VSiN.
You could say GOAT, except
Yes.
when you have to explain to the man which one is the green flag and why.
Yeah, I just had to make sure that he was on top of his game today.
He's got the flags. He's there. There he is. There's Rob. Got a little love for Rob there, but yeah, we had to explain the. Come on, guys. Come on, fellas.
The one that no one knows is the blue flag with the yellow.
Yes, I believe it was requested that it was what's the Ukrainian flag? I believe I was told.
Yes, that was one of our lovely audio guys. I won't name him.
We'll leave that one unnamed.
Yes.
I said that'd be the get the hell out of the way flag. Anyway, welcome into Gone Racin. Mr. Motley is off this week, and so me and Wyatt hanging out. Of course, Wyatt, the voice of the Lady Rebs, got to throw a little Lady Reb love in there, and we are going to break down everything we had last weekend at Richmond, which.
You want to talk about the Lady Rebs? Because I don't really want to talk about Richmond. It wasn't good.
Well, look, Richmond was. They used to call it the action track, right? We all know that this package of this car so far, Wyatt, has not been its forte, right? The short track package has not been. This car has been amazing on mile and a half, amazing on super speedways. NASCAR knows, and this is, I got to give kudos to NASCAR. They did a test on Monday after the race. They know they're trying something. Now, I say that with a little bit of reservation. No caution flags other than one at the end and the stage breaks, but you shouldn't penalize us, the drivers, for doing our jobs well.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's the bad thing is, oh, no caution flags. Well, we're professionals. We did our job well that day. So it's one of those deals where you got to balance things, but NASCAR is working very hard on trying to liven this package up. But in the end, not a bad day, not a terrible day, but we did see something look, we know I have the king of Brad Keselowski love over here, but RFK Racing and Brad Keselowski love didn't even expect Chris Buescher at 55-1.
We didn't expect that. We didn't expect the Fords. I mean, you know what the most annoying thing, Brendan, if you look on this graphic here? They didn't put him in a group. We love Chris Buescher and all the groups, and they knew it. We even said that. We said Chris isn't in a group, but 55-1 to win, 15-1 for a top three. We did mention 15-1 for the top three. We did say, hey, Buescher and him. Ford was the dog, of course, at 250. His championship odds have gone from 80 down to 40-1. Still a long shot in the odds, But I tell you what, the way the RFK cars have been coming, and how about Brad Keselowski, man? I mean, you and I were talking before air. Jeff and I talk about this all the time. We know we have a lot of Kurt Busch love on this show. Kurt would go places and make them better. Brad Keselowski had a daunting task before him when he went to take ownership of RFK Racing. What you've seen him do, remember, he's only been there 16 months, maybe 18 months. What he has done at RFK, unbelievable, Wyatt. It's been really good. Brendan, if you think back to before Brad got there, they've won now twice with Buescher in the 2 years. In the 5 years probably prior, probably Ricky winning?
Yeah.
That was about it.
Oh, and they won maybe a super speedway race.
Yeah.
What they've done right now, how well they're running consistently is the big thing. And we joke, Chris Buescher cashes tickets on this show, man. We bet Chris as often as we can because he is a ticket cashing machine. And Brad has become, for me, my massive, daunting lead in the Gone Racing League has a lot of Brad Keselowski wins in there. And the guy who used to bet him every week hasn't been betting him, and I've been making money on him.
Well, you see, when I bet him, he loses. When you bet him, he wins. But, talk about Chris Buescher cashing tickets. I got a funny story. So I'm watching the race, and when the caution comes out, I'm like, oh, wow, we got a caution. Holy cow. All of a sudden, my phone rings. It's my dad. And he calls me, and he's just dejected. He goes, I had Chris Buescher to win. And Buescher was up 6 seconds. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, I've seen this movie 1,000 times.
Yep.
Thankfully, Buescher got a good restart. I was also a little concerned because Hamlin started on the outside of him.
Denny has a record of running hard.
Yeah. And then my dad calls me afterwards. He goes, hey, if you need any help cashing 60-1 tickets, just call me. I'm like, okay, all right.
Thanks, Pop.
Yeah, thanks.
Hey, should have told your son to bet him for the win for the Gone Racin show.
I might have been in the lead.
You would have
been close.
No, hey,
I don't know. We're really far behind.
Look at 55-1. You wouldn't have caught me. Let's get to the top 10 too. Top 10 was 55-1. We said Chris Buescher, but Denny Hamlin was one of our favorites at plus 180. Kyle Busch, another one of the favorites at plus 250. The Fords actually had a decent day. Joey Logano was up there. Harvick was up there a bunch. But look at this. Ryan Preece, a much needed top 5. There's our Brad K. Both RFK cars were running 1-2 till Brad made his mistake. So 6th place finish for him, though. Eric Almirola, another Ford there. Austin Dillon, we talked about him. This is a good place for him. He had a good run. And there's Harvick with just another solid top 10, just kind of pointing his way in. So nice job by those guys.
And this was a much-needed race, I think, not only for the Fords, but also for Stewart Haas. This is probably their best race of the year. But, Brendan, I'll tell you what, the biggest surprise, I've been proud of some moments I've been really good betting NASCAR. Some moments I've been really bad. I was bad this week thinking the Chevys were going to be good, and Kyle Larson, they weren't close at all.
The Hendrick cars were, it's amazing. This sport is fickle. We were talking William Byron was the favorite a couple weeks ago. He was the odds-on favorite. Then Martin Truex was the odds-on favorite, and I still think Martin Truex is probably more of the favorite than anybody else. But the Fords finally showed up. But this is the track that we've talked about. Fords have been running better on these than the others, so still a little missed.
And as you mentioned, some much-needed top 10s.
Yes.
For Eric Almirola, Ryan Preece, Austin Dillon, guys who have had just seasons that they would like to just wash away. That's much needed.
Hey, I'll take one weekend and you do it again and you start making it, it's called a winning streak. You start putting them together. So a lot of guys did that. But how about Chris Buescher locked himself into the playoffs now with that W because, as Motley likes to point out, we're not going to get to my magic number this year. Every winner.
That's his favorite thing to mention.
I know. Every winner will make it. Only 3 spots left up for grabs. It was a clean race. All 36 cars running at the finish. So kind of a nice deal right there. You look at the point standings. William Byron is still your playoff leader with 701 points. Your point leader, though, regular season, is Martin Truex Jr. That comes with a lot of valuable bonus points that help you get to that Final Four. And then that cutoff line. It didn't move the needle a lot on the cutoff line because Chris was in the playoffs before. What it just did was it made it more difficult. He's out of that battle. Now that cutoff line still battle royale. How about Michael McDowell still holding that last spot? But a decent gap there. Ty Gibbs, the dinger. Chase Elliott in your screen at the bottom there. Bowman out of the bottom of the screen. Chase Elliott in.
So I was going to ask you, this is really what popped out to me. Chase Elliott's only 40 points behind, and he didn't get the result that he wanted overall. He finished 13th, but he had some stage points, and he got more stage points than Michael McDowell. He's only 40 points behind. Do you think that he can race his way into the playoffs without a win?
A couple weeks ago, I said I didn't think he could. First of all, I've said the whole time, Chase Elliott's going to probably win the regular season to get himself there. But I do believe Chase Elliott can point his way in at 40 points, and you look at the names he's going up against. Bubba Wallace, really lucky right now. He's gapped himself a little bit from that field. So he has, unless somebody else wins and puts Bubba on the cut line, if you look at this, I think Chase Elliott could point his way in. 40 points with this point system, not insurmountable, especially when you talk about a front row team like Michael McDowell, who has been kind of overachieving, right? They've been running better than they have been in the past. So rooting for them, don't get me wrong. Ty Gibbs, a rookie, AJ Allmendinger, and that colleague team, which is good, but never been a great team yet. They're not at that level yet. And Suarez, who is so streaky hit and miss, he absolutely can point his way in, but it's going to take the last, 4 more races to go or 3 more races to go for the playoffs?
Yeah.
It's going to take super clean racing by Chase Elliott, that Hendrick bunch.
So another question I had for you, do you think that they become a little bit more aggressive and gamble on the stages to get a little bit extra points? Where they'll say, we'll risk maybe having an 11th to 12th, but if we can finish a second or third, with, say, like McDowell or guys in front of you are consistently running in the top 10.
I think that right now, I think that Chase Elliott's still going to try to win. I think they're going to try to throw some dice to win, but absolutely, if I'm Chase and I'm his crew chief and I'm those guys, I am absolutely looking at this saying, you know what? If we look what it did, you just mentioned this weekend, what it did for him at Richmond. He did not win the race. He finished 13th in the race, but he got 4th place stage points in stage 1. That's valuable. That's what put him back up in that spot. So I do think that you might see those guys do a little bit more of stage point gambling, especially with road courses coming right now, where you can kind of play that strategy and maybe try to gain some points with the 2 road races that are coming up.
Yeah, because the stage win is not only you get 10 points, but you get that playoff point if you can get in.
Yep. Let's talk about the next couple races real quick. We have, of course, this weekend we're going to the FireKeepers Casino 400 in Michigan. I'm going to be there, the Mighty 62 team.
That's right.
Our first non-super speedway race. Then we go to the road course at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, then the road course at Watkins Glen, then, of course, the crapshoot, the greatest cutoff race they ever could have come up with, the Coke Zero 400 at Daytona, and then the playoff start with the Cookout Southern 500 back at Darlington on Labor Day weekend. Love the scheduling this year.
These are tough races. I'm excited for the race this weekend. Obviously, with the road courses, you never know with that strategy, and we've seen some really wild ones.
Oh, yeah.
I am so excited for that Coke Zero 400. I hope that the weather gods and the vortex theory works out, that there's no rain, because that race is always.
You love that vortex theory thing. You and Darrell Waltrip.
That race is always rain delayed till Sunday morning.
It does have a tendency to get rain delayed. There are some guys that have been great at Michigan. The Fords, of course, we've talked about the Fords forever at Michigan. Roush used to dominate this place. Penske used to dominate it. It's the big, giant 2-mile oval. Used to look like California Speedway. One of my favorites of all time. But you look at the guys that are great there, and the name on top, Kevin freaking Harvick. 42 races, the old man in the sea here. 6 wins, 22 top 10s. But, Wyatt, I told you a stat before the show. Last 10 races, 5 of those wins.
That's
5 in the last 10 races.
That's legendary status at a track. When I was doing the notes last night, I was looking. I was like, okay, when's Harvick won at Michigan? I just looked, just kept saying 1. I was like, oh wow, yeah, I forgot he dominated there.
Recently, he's been winning. And how about Chase Elliott? 10 top 10s in 12 races. No wins. 10 top 10s, 12 races.
Could have a bet later on.
I think there might be somebody might have to put some money on that one. So it looks pretty solid right there. All right, guys, when we come back, we're going to get to the odds and all that good stuff on Gone Racin.
This is Gone Racing, VSiN's premier NASCAR betting podcast. Here are your hosts, former NASCAR driver Brendan Gaughan and Las Vegas Motor Speedway's Jeff Motley.
And welcome back, everybody. Wyatt Tomchek filling in for Jeff Motley. Us in the VSiN studio at the South Point Hotel Casino, Spa, whatever else you want to call it. All sorts of fun things. By the way, the sports book behind us. Don't worry, Jimmy will be back in a couple more weeks.
Did he retire again?
Yeah, he's been gone for 3-4 months.
Well, I saw him last month. I felt like
he hates baseball.
Oh, I gotcha.
So he'll be back for football season. Those of you in the know, don't fret. Jimmy will be back. We all made that bet anyway. We know that. So let's get into the FireKeepers Casino 400. And Wyatt, we have some, one odds-on favorite, which I'm not sure I really agree with the odds-on favorite, but I do. I mean, he's Denny Hamlin. He's been pretty hot lately. But we got Denny Hamlin is your leader at 550. Kyle Larson, that's a huge number, in my opinion, for Kyle Larson at plus 700. Martin Truex Jr., Kyle Busch, William Byron, all at 800. Kevin Harvick, 850. Ryan Blaney, 10. Christopher Bell, 12, with Tyler Reddick there at 12. Joey Logano, 14. Chase Elliott, Bubba Wallace, both at 15. Ross Chastain at 18. Brad Keselowski, 22. Ty Gibbs, 25. And Chris Buescher rounds out our top page at 40-1. First of all, Kevin Harvick's 850, and we were just talking about last 5 races or 10 races, and you're telling me Kyle Larson is 700? I mean, to win? Wait, what? Huh? Who?
I think they're a little upset at Kyle from last week at Richmond.
He sucked last week.
Yeah.
I mean,
unfortunately, if somebody who bets him, we'll expect better. But you were talking about the numbers. I mean, 850 for Kevin Harvick to win. And he's won 5 of the last 10 races here. That's not a bad number. Yeah. And for a guy who's also racing really well over the last 3 races, he's had top 10 finishes. So that's a number that I really like.
Yeah, Jeff always talks about, what have you done for me lately, right? And he says, oh, Harvick, lately. You go to these last 10 races. First last year, won this race in 2022. Had a 14th in 2021. But then first in 20, there was 2 back then. First in 2020, twice. First in 2019. Then a 7th, then a 1st, then a 2nd. I mean, that he's still been doing it lately. So, and the Fords, now here's the problem. Where do I go with the Fords, the conundrum? Do I say the Fords have not been good on these places, but they weren't good last year, and Kevin won? So,
and also the way they raced last week is like, this is a sport of momentum. Like, have they kind of figured it out, or are you kind of on the bandwagon for them? That's kind of tough Because if you are thinking about the Fords and you're thinking of a Brad Keselowski, a Chris Buescher again, I mean, who's to say that he can't run up front?
The only track this is like is California Speedway.
Yep.
I say that it used to be very similar. Right now, Michigan, they did such a good job repaving it. It hasn't widened out like my old Michigan merge that I used to have, that I used to love. Hasn't gotten that back. But if you go to the 2-mile track, which California was built off of Michigan, the Chevrolets were the Chevrolets. Kyle Busch first, Chase Elliott second, Ross Chastain third, Daniel Suarez fourth. Kevin Harvick was fifth. One Toyota in the top 10 that day. So the Chevys dominated early in the season. One Ford, Harvick, and a Brad Keselowski in seventh that day. So, have they gotten better from that? Do you think they've gotten better? This one to me is going to be a telling. What do we do with Ford the rest of the season? Right. This to me is going to be proof in the pudding. Have you guys figured out that big stuff? Do I bet them yet, or do I not bet them yet?
That's tough. Like, I love the Kevin Harvick at plus 850, but the other guys, I'm not quite there yet. Because, like you said, if the Fords can run well here, then I believe that a few of the Fords have a legit chance to win a championship. But if they don't, I don't see them competing with the Chevys and the Toyotas as we head down the stretch of the season.
They need to figure it out heading down the stretch of the season. Now, if they can make it to Phoenix, it's the style track they've been good on. But they got to get there first. Let's get to the second page of the guys to win. And you start off that second page with the winners, and you got Alex Bowman leads the way at 40-1. That's a big number for a big team at 40-1. Daniel Suarez, 60. Noah Gragson, 80. Austin Dillon, Eric Almirola, and Eric Jones all at 90-1. Ricky Stenhouse, 100. Ryan Preece, 150. The Dinger, 150. I love McDowell, but to win would be a far fetch at 200-1. One thing that doesn't happen at Michigan, you get fuel mileage races, but you always get big names. There's never been that surprise kind of, oh, wow, where'd this guy come from? It's always big organizations, big names. And so Alex Bowman, 40-1. Ooh.
And this is a guy that needs a win.
Needs a win. The Chevy's been super hot at the big places like this. He's in a Hendrick car. He finished 9th in this race last year. I like that number.
And another guy that I want to point out, too, is the one below him, bless you.
Excuse me.
is Daniel Suarez at 60-1. Daniel is in desperate need of a win. I don't think they have the consistency to get in on points and catch McDowell. And if you look at, for Suarez, last year he finished fourth. At California this year he finished fourth.
Yep.
He was third in stage 1, fifth in stage 2. And last year he led twice for 33 laps, did finish 25th. But
at this race.
So he's got some speed. He does well on the 1.5-mile tracks. That's a guy, if you're really, if you're, 50 points behind somebody in a competition, that's a guy you might want to throw a bet on.
Well, and look, we all know that Ross Chastain has been very good. And like we said, Daniel Suarez has been streaky. This is where he got his first Xfinity win. He loves this place. So this is the place he also has been leading at many different times. He's very good here. If I'm looking at this back page for somebody to win, it's worth putting a chip on old Alex Bowman and Daniel Suarez, because those are two big organizations that have been running well in these places that they could legitimately win this race.
Don't disagree with you on that.
Let's get to our top threes then. Our top threes, of course, lead off a very paltry, but not a negative number. We haven't had a negative, I don't think, this year in the top threes.
No, this isn't F1 yet.
Well, we used to have them. We used to get a Kyle Busch and a Kevin Harvick. But Denny Hamlin is your favorite, plus 175. You got Kyle Larson at 200. Martin Truex Jr., Kyle Busch, William Byron all at 210. Kevin Harvick, 240. 285, Ryan Blaney. 330 for Christopher Bell. That's a pretty high number, in my opinion, for Christopher Bell. Tyler Reddick at 330 also. Then you get down to Joey Logano, 400. Chase Elliott, 400. Bubba Wallace, 400. Ross Chastain, 5. Brad Keselowski, 6. Ty Gibbs, 7. And Alex Bowman, 10-1. That's kind of weird. The pages don't actually match up for a change. Chris Buescher, who was on they were both 40-1. That's why. It's just where you guys printed them out. Never mind. All good.
I'll be better at printing.
No. Just Chris Buescher was on the front page, and then he's on the back page, but no. So Alex Bowman, 10-1. I'm going to look at that again and say, hold on. Hendrick Motorsports, but historically, Fords run so well here. I'm so torn. Do I jump on the Fords yet? But they just haven't shown me anything at the big tracks.
So you're talking about the Fords. I'm going to switch to the Toyotas real quick. Bubba Wallace last year at this race finished second, led twice, 22 laps. Yep. He's had some good speed as of lately. Is really consistent at the 1.5 mile tracks. Obviously won at Kansas. I know it's a different track, but he can win at these type of tracks. Another guy is Tyler Reddick. Man, oh man, Tyler Reddick has had some great speed, but him and Christopher Bell feel like they have the Denny Hamlin syndrome and shoot themselves in the foot.
Their pit crew or them are making mistakes. They are doing the Denny Hamlin. Like that team, right now, if I'm Joe Gibbs Racing, I am furious at my pit crew. They have made way too many mistakes.
And Reddick, he had a rough stretch for about 5 weeks, and then 2 of the last 3 weeks, he gets a speeding penalty in New Hampshire, able to drive back for a top 10, but he had a top 5 car at Richmond, and he misses the commitment line.
Mm-hmm.
Just can't do that.
No, you can't make these mistakes at this level and expect to run well. Second page of the top threes, they're still, once again, Chris Buescher leads off 11-1. That was why I was saying they're back-to-back. Daniel Suarez is 14. Noah Gragson Austin is 20. Austin Dillon, Eric Almirola, Eric Jones, Ricky Stenhouse, all 22. Then the Dinger and Priest, 40 and 50. Chase Briscoe, 55. It's a shame that Chase Briscoe and Austin Siddick are that far down when you figure the teams they're on. We can laser in again. That Chris Buescher and Daniel Suarez. So it's like we did Alex Bowman and Daniel Suarez. Great numbers for top threes from two guys right there that could very well, if the Fords have the Ford magic here, which they did win last year, you look at Chris Buescher and say what they've been doing lately, but can Chris win 2 in a row? I don't know if they're there yet. But
I mean, if they are, then you're looking at RFKs like,
I
consider
they
you
just
guys
brought them back up.
Yeah.
I wouldn't put them back there yet, but and then you got Daniel Suarez at 14-1.
I love that.
That's the one I like for that top three. I do like the Daniel Suarez top three.
And this is a guy in Suarez that needs a good run. I mean, I think they're gonna throw everything in the egg basket here to get a win.
I can't disagree with you. It looks there are some numbers here that I do like. Now I want to throw a little love. Austin Hill 80-1 for a top three. That of course is my Mighty Beard Oil 62 team.
Let me say, if you hit it 80-1, me and Jeff are just, you know what, we're walking off the stage. We throw the white flag. We're done.
Listen, I was back in North Carolina last week. I was actually putting the roof on his backup car. Yeah, hopefully he doesn't need the backup car.
I was going to say, hopefully he doesn't need the backup car.
But it's cool. It is our first non-super speedway race, and so I got to throw a little love out to my Beard Oil team. It's our first time going to a non-super speed. We did a road course race when I was there, but first non-super speedway race. So we're all excited. Darren Shaw, the crew of one. I walked in the shop on Saturday with the kids. It was Darren and one guy, Mike, that's one of our part-time guys, and one guy from RCR on a Saturday building the backup car all alone.
Love to hear those stories. Hey, you know what? I wish you guys the best of luck. I hope it goes well for you.
Well, I'll be there. We'll be watching. All right. Well, when we come back, you guys get to watch us talk about head-to-heads and get into the group matchups.
This is Gone Racing, VSiN's premier NASCAR betting podcast. Here are your hosts, former NASCAR driver Brendan Gaughan and Las Vegas Motor Speedway's Jeff Motley.
Want to rewatch any part of today's show, or any past show for that matter? Check out the Gone Racin podcast. It's free and available now at VSiN.com/podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. We give you all the latest news, odds, and everything you need to know that's straight to the betting counter before each and every NASCAR Cup race. While you're there, catch up on every great VSiN show as well. VSiN.com/podcasts. And welcome back in, everybody, to the Gone Racin version of the podcast. We have Wyatt Tomchek, of course, filling in for Mr. Jeff Motley.
He's having a fun time. Did you hear him when he was talking about his trip? He was going all the way down up in Canada. He was going to go to all these Hall of Fame. So
I did not hear that.
But you were remote last week. That's right. That's when he told me.
Okay. Yeah, he's doing a big Eastern Seaboard.
Yeah, like the NFL Hall of Fame, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, all that stuff.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah,
that's kind of cool. That's a fun trip. Good for him. Good for him. So we, of course, are not doing the East Coast road trip. We're doing the VSiN studio and the head-to-heads on the FireKeeper 400. And you and I were talking off air. Wyatt, head-to-heads, not real fun this week.
No.
Normally we get head-to-heads lately, except when you get to like Daytonas and, the super speedways. But there's just not a lot of meat in the bone here for these. It's a lot of even monies. Nothing really sticks out to me. Well, there's one, Ross Chastain plus 120 to Christopher Bell minus 140. It's a good head-to-head. And Chastain, finished third. dominated California earlier this year. One stage one, one stage two, finished third, and the Toyotas were fairly poor at that race this year. Chris Buescher had an accident in that race, so didn't run well. So I don't know. Maybe the plus 120 Ross Chastain, does he get out? He hasn't had a top 10 since that win a few weeks ago.
Yeah, this is a guy that I think desperately needs to get back on the right track. I mean, we talked about his incident at Darlington. It was like kind of messed up with him driving. Then he wins at Nashville. It's like, okay, now he's back, and then it just
faded since then.
And there's some races where he's not even getting close to the top 10. I mean, you get it, Atlanta, he wrecked, had a good car, but Richmond wasn't sniffing anywhere near the top of the pack.
And Martin Truex Jr. not getting a lot of love. He's a even money line against Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin, William Byron. It's like, well, wait, this is the guy that's the third best point getter last 10 races, 8 top 10s, average finish 6.9 in the last 10 races. So Martin Truex Jr. against any one of those guys on an even money line is not a terrible bet, especially he's only a week removed from us just basically, the fans handing him the championship for this season. So, I mean, if you want it, even money bet, but still a decent bet there.
Yeah, and then another one I like was Harvick over Kyle Busch. Kevin Harvick's even money. Yeah.
And Bowman plus 110 against Ty Gibbs, the rookie. I mean, Ty, remember, this will actually be Ty's second race at Michigan.
Yes.
He raced this race last year when he was filling in, and he finished
10th
last year. So Ty had a good run at this track last year. So, I mean, there you go. And he was actually 16th at California in only his third, fourth, whatever it was, race. So, I don't know. I mean, Alex Bowman plus 110. I still think, like I said, those Hendrick cars are going to be tough to beat. But let's get into our group matchups. And some of the group matchups also, Wyatt, missing a little bit of meat on the bone. Like, it almost looks a little bit like a speedway race when you look at some of these odds, where the Westgate, where we get our odds from, is they're a little nervous out there. Group A, it's the 4-man horse race. Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin, William Byron at plus 270. Martin Truex Jr., your dog, at 275. Hard to differentiate between any of these guys, and you're not giving me any enticement on anybody.
So the one that I like, and I think I might make a play on, is Denny Hamlin in this group. Hamlin has been on his game since Sonoma, where he finished 36th. The lowest he was 14th at Atlanta. I remember he spun, I think, a couple times. I like him in this group. Obviously, Truex has got the consistency. William Byron, I think, is now starting to hit that summer struggle that we've seen from him in years past. Since he won in Atlanta, he's finished 24th, 14th, and 21st. So I'm not really seeing much out of him. And Kyle Larson, I was really, really disappointed with him last week. That has really kind of thrown me off him.
Well, and Denny Hamlin, he's maybe in a bunch of money lately. I've been betting him, and I can't disagree. You look at what he did at California this year. He was the number 1 Toyota, 6th place. So he led laps, finished great in stages. You go back to this race last year, finished 3rd, 2nd in stage 1, 1st in stage 2, led a bunch of laps. So, last 10 races, 3rd, 5th, 2nd, 6th, 2nd in the last 5. So I could give you a Denny Hamlin on that and be happy given that, especially with the Hendrick kind of wane right now. Call it between Denny and Martin Truex and give the edge just a little bit to Denny. So I could agree with you. It's just tough matchup. I did win a Group A matchup with Denny recently, though. I think it was last week or the week before.
I think you might have won it with the Pocono.
Yeah, maybe it was Pocono. It was, yeah. So I'll give it to you. Group B is Kyle Busch, your favorite, at 260. Kevin Harvick and Tyler Reddick at 270. Ryan Blaney, 285. This is the tough one. Blaney's won here in not too distant future. Harvick, though, Kyle Busch, who just whooped it this year at California Speedway.
I don't mind the Kyle play, but the one I'm looking at here is Kevin. I mean, like you said, what have you done for me lately? And I love the way he's been running the last 3 weeks. I think he's picking it up at the right time before the playoffs start.
God, the Ford sucks so bad, though.
I know, it's so tough.
But he was the top 5 at California Speedway this year. Yeah. So,
and then, you mentioned Ryan Blaney. It's a hard feel on Brian Blaney. I feel like he's just there.
He's persona non grata. Yeah. We don't talk about him for weeks at a time, and then he wins.
Yeah.
And you're like, hey, look, Blaney's back. And it's like Byron right now. We said that Alex Bowman, William Byron, and Ryan Blaney are the 3 kids that they get hot, and you say, oh, my God, we're talking about him every week. And then we keep talking about him, and they're doing nothing. And then we stop talking about him.
And they win a race.
And they go win a race. I'm with you on the Ryan Blaney thing. He is decent here. If you go last 10 races, 6 top 10s, 4 top 5s, and a win in the last 10. So Blaney is good at this place. But again, the Fords.
Just don't know. That's that wild card this week.
It's tough for me to pick a Ford right now. I don't know. But if they do it this week, we're on the Ford and Bad Wagon. It's wide open again. Let's go into Group C, and Group C leads off with Christopher Bell and Bubba Wallace, our co-favorites, the two Toyotas there. Chase Elliott, 295, Ross Chastain, 295. I'm sorry. This is Group C. I know I've been beating the dead horse. Wyatt, I'm telling you, every week, I'm betting him every week. He's in Group C against Bubba, Chris Bell, and Ross Chastain. Chase Elliott at 295. Sorry. He is going to
I know
be Chase Elliott.
He's like when I was betting Jimmy in his final year. I'm like, Jimmy's going to win a race before he retires. And it didn't happen. But I'm like, I don't want to miss Chase Elliott winning a race when I know he's capable of. So that's a great value play on Chase. The one guy I'm throwing out in this group is Christopher Bell. I just can't trust him at the moment. He has finished 18th or worse in 4 of the last 5 races. He keeps getting into accidents, just kind of, like we said, shooting himself in the foot. That team right now doesn't have the consistency. Another one, I mean, Bubba, I think would be a...
Bubba, listen, Bubba is the sneaky pick in this group right here. Bubba Wallace, 2 top 10s and a top 5 here. He's only got 9 starts. So Bubba has, and he was second in this race last year. You know, Bubba is the guy that, if I go back to California, blew an engine. So don't have a great stat on it. But Bubba's the sneaky one because he's been running very well lately. Like sneaky well. Like we don't talk about him.
He led a good portion of that Richmond race.
He's led laps. We don't talk about him on air. And then he shows up and he's been his consistency since he argued, was it 6 weeks ago, he said he should be fired. He was like, oh, I suck. He's been sneaking his way up into being where I think Kurt Busch is helping him tremendously over there. And I think that's a sneaky one, but I'm sorry. Chase Elliott.
I won't be able to talk you off of that one.
I'm going to bet him every week till he wins.
I know we're going to have a head-to-head in this one. I can already tell.
All right. Let's get to Group D then. And we got the rookie as our big favorite. Ty Gibbs, 235. Alex Bowman, Brad Keselowski, 275s. Daniel Suarez, 310. Brad's been hot lately, dude. Brad has been hot. I mean, I don't know.
I was struggling with this one. What was I gonna make a pick with my heart or make a pick that I need to make up money? And the money one is I like Daniel Suarez, but I like what RFK Racing's done. And Brad, who you remember the California race, he spun midway through the race and still was able to get his way up to 7th. So it's a tough one. Ty Gibbs, I don't really know. And Alex Bowman, I know you're high on Alex. He's won here before, but I just don't know.
The thing about Alex Bowman is that team is just too good.
Yeah.
It's Hendrick Motorsports, and we've talked about him all year where he is a fader, right? He goes great, he goes away, he goes great. He's been away too many weeks. That's my thinking on that is he's been away too long. Is this the week that he snaps?
Well, I thought it was going to be Pocono.
And that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's like, so the struggle there for me is Alex Bowman, but at the same time, Ty Gibbs ran there last year, ran well. Could he do it? This group to me is probably the toughest, but Brad Keselowski been cashing tickets.
He has been. I mean, the RFK guys have probably made us the most money on Gone Racing, along with Shane Van Gisbergen.
Made me thank you, Shane. He's coming back in a couple weeks. We'll be talking about him. Let's get to Group E real quick. Group E, we got Eric Jones, 240, Austin Dillon, 270, AJ Allmendinger, 290, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. at 290. Just going off the numbers, this one is the easiest one for me, Austin Dillon. I know I'm biased, we all know that, but going off of numbers, Austin Dillon, 9th at California this year, runs really well here.
And he got a top 10 last week, so that helps build the momentum going into this race.
I'm with it. All right, when we come back, we'll finish up Group F, give you our, props and our picks.
This is Gone Racin, VSiN's premier NASCAR betting podcast. Here are your hosts, former NASCAR driver Brendan Gaughan and Las Vegas Motor Speedway's Jeff Motley.
Welcome back in. Gone Racin. White flag is in the air last segment. And Wyatt, you asked me earlier about I'd knocked something off a desk while I had a phone call during the show, had it, between my legs. It was my buddy Jimmy Johnson who was basically just throwing a dig at me.
Now, did the sunglasses survive?
The sunglasses, they're on the ground still. I haven't got off the chair.
Okay,
they're
gotcha.
okay. But, yeah, to Jimmy, I love you, and I sent you the message that says what I said.
Congratulations to Jimmy.
And we didn't talk about it at the start of the show, but Chad Canals, Jimmy Johnson, two guys that if there's ever a first ballot Hall of Fame, to the four people who did not make him a unanimous vote, I would love to see what your criteria is to be a unanimous first ballot Hall of Famer. Does Tom Brady not get first ballot Hall of Fame?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, like we were talking about it. Derek Jeter, one of the greatest baseball players of all time. One person didn't vote him.
Yeah,
he would have been unanimous. I'm like, what? Why?
And Jeff Gordon had the same thing.
Yeah.
So and the guy that did Jeff Gordon's literally said he just didn't want it to be unanimous. Those type of people don't need to be on voting boards. Anyway, let's finish off our Group F. And Group F, of course, normally our favorite group, but we are mad. Westgate, you're killing us. We want some Chris Buescher back in groups.
2 weeks in a row.
The problem is they're going to start putting him in B and C.
Oh, I know. Now we're like, oh, God.
But Chase Briscoe is your favorite at 260. Michael McDowell, 270. Ryan Preece, 270. Harrison Burton, 285. Harrison who? I mean, I'm sorry. I don't mean to be rude, but he has not shown they should have stuck with Matt DiBenedetto as the way it looks lately.
Yeah, that's the first person I take out of here.
Yeah, I just look at that. Briscoe, kind of the same thing. Briscoe's good, but hasn't, other than the Phoenix style track stuff, hasn't shown a lot. I look at this and go, who's the guy that Preece Preece has been streaky hot.
Yeah.
And he's with Stewart Haas, which is a better team than Front Row. But McDowell and his crew chief and the decisions they make and what they're running for, I really like McDowell right here. I think that's a great.
That was the one I circled right away. It's like, who's the guy that's desperate needs for a consistent run? Those three guys need a win, so they're going to gamble more. McDowell would like a win, but he's currently in the.
All they're doing is they're just point their way to death. Get some
Yep.
stage points, point their way in, so they're going to make a solid run. Preece could gamble and try to get something, but McDowell's just going to get solid points, solid day. I think McDowell's my pick on this one.
I like that one.
Our prop bet, and here's where I think I'm going to hedge some of my bets, Wyatt. Chevy, of course, back at your favorite 140, Toyota 155, Ford's 255. Coming off the win last week, Ford has been the dog, absolutely. Ford deserves 320 if you want the truth. But there's always been something at Michigan that the Fords have always had some magic. And even though I'm not high on Fords, even though I'm sitting here saying I don't like the Ford drivers, I'm not picking the Ford drivers, 255 in the three-man horse race, enticement.
It's really, really enticing. That's when I circle. It's like, I think I'm on the Ford bandwagon.
I'm
like,
not.
Oh,
but
it's like
I'm not.
it's so tough. If they didn't win that race at Richmond, I'd be like, no. don't bet this. But now I'm like, golly.
Well, and I'm not even taking Richmond out of it. I'm just looking at Michigan and what Ford has done there. The breadth of work, even years that Ford had nobody, even years that it was when Roush Fenway disappeared for the decade, and you knew that Ford always found a way, whether it was with Penske, whether it was the early years with Stewart Haas, whether it was recently with Stewart Haas. Ford at Michigan is just, there's something there. Even though I'm not high on the Fords, I can hedge my bet and speak out of both sides of my mouth, and say, yeah, but I'll take the Ford manufacturer over here. But it's for 255 in a three-man horse race.
It's like I took it because I want to win money.
Yeah.
It's good odds.
Let's go into the championship odds this week, just because I want to bring this in, because especially Chris Buescher was preseason 100-1. Before the race, he was still at 80, dropped all the way down to 40. He probably will drop again if they keep running as consistently as they are. But, still moving the right way. We talk all the time. Wyatt, you do all these shows at VSiN. Guys, sports bettors understand how to hedge bet and use futures as a hedge. NASCAR guys, probably not so much. This is where you hedge. You use your futures to put a little extra, hedge your bet a little bit down the stretch.
Yeah, and then there's a couple guys here, Brendan, that I was seeing. Obviously Chase Elliott 15-1. If you believe that Chase Elliott is that guy, he's going to get in and be consistent, that's a great bet. Another guy I've been talking about how frustrating it's been betting him is Tyler Reddick. Tyler Reddick has top 5 speed, it feels like every week, but it finds a way to have cruddy finishes. So if you believe that they could right the ship, 22-1 for a guy who's, won where he won at Coda this year, should have won at least a few more races. It feels like that's not a bad bet.
And Ross Chastain a few weeks ago was, I think, plus 800, 850 or plus 900. He's back up to 15-1.
Yeah.
So that's a guy that's made the Final Four last year. He knows how to, if that team can just get themselves back in the right direction. There's even Kyle Busch at 750, I think, is a great number based off of how hot he's been streaky this year. So a lot of numbers here you can hedge with, a lot of ways you can really get some bang for your buck, really, and hedge that bet down the stretch. All right, let's last week, 50-50 week for the for the deals. Nobody won a lot, but some of us didn't lose much, and some of us did lose much.
I told Michelle to burn this graphic. We need to. Ugh.
You know, me and Motley, we did get it. I got the Motley got the Stenhouse Group F win, so he was minus 0.1. I got the Denny. That was where I had Denny Hamlin Group A last week.
There we go.
At the minus point, a half a point, and then of course the pit crew continuing their previous streak of Ofer.
You know, there was only one that was kind of close, and that was Kevin Harvick. But the rest of them, man, I just ran into a wall. I mean, Christopher Bell didn't have a good race. Kyle Larson, obviously. Isaiah talked me into Justin Haley. I think he finished 35th, like 5 laps down. And then, obviously, we're high on the Chevys. Like, man, this is a Chevy track. They dominated the race in the spring, and Kyle Busch was really the closest one, and he wound up racing his way up to a top 5 finish. They didn't come close at all.
Yeah, so for the season, I just by standing still, I keep pulling away. You could have hit that 55-1 with Chris Buescher.
No, I still would.
You would still be.
I would have been ahead of Jeff at least.
You'd got ahead of Jeff, but you'd be way behind me still.
Ugh.
Well, and with that, let's start our picks. So, of course, the pit crew has been the perennial favorite to go first this year. So, please, Wyatt, lead the way.
So we're going with some long shots this week because we need to, and also redemption because I had Daniel Suarez for a top 3 at California, and he finished 4th, like 12-1. So we got him at 14-1. I think this is a race for him that he needs to really kind of go for the Hail Mary and go for the win. Loving what Danny's been doing these last handful of races. I got him in Group A plus 270. The guy who's dominated this racetrack over the last 5 years, Kevin Harvick, to win Group B. I think this is the week Ross Chastain picks the momentum back up, like him in Group C. And we were talking about it in Group F, Michael McDowell to win. He's the guy that needs the consistent finishes.
Well, unfortunately, we're going to have a couple the same this week, which kind of bums me out because anytime I have the same as the pit crew, I get nervous the way they've been picking this year. Even Rob's back there shaking his head going, yeah, you guys, pit crew sucks.
Rob goes, he asked me, I told him about the black flag. I go, you wave it when we do something bad. So he goes, so wave it when you give your picks out? I was like, thanks, babe. Thanks.
He's got it out too. That pit crew got their picks, and there's Rob with his black. See? So Mr. Motley is not here, but Mr. Motley did phone a friend. He did send his picks in. And did he send those to you or me?
Well, we also have it on a graphic, too.
Oh, you have a graphic. Oh, how about that? Let's bring up the phone for it. But good thing. Good. But professionally unprofessional. Come prepared here. Apparently the pit crew does. We got Martin Truex Jr. at plus 275 in Group A. Okay, we're going to be a little head-to-head action there. He does have Kevin Harvick in Group B at plus 270. So you guys are picking the same there. Brad Keselowski, Group D. He's finally jumping on the Brad K bandwagon. Never too late. Never too late. And, the kiss of death. I'm going to have to change something. Michael McDowell, Group F, 270. And he's taking the Ford to win theory. See, now I really don't like my picks today.
Man, the McDowell one just,
I may change that on the fly right now. I'm just saying. So that is Jeff picks for Michigan.
Well, you want to annoy him because, he won't have to scribble anything out.
He won't have to scribble anything out. That's right, because I haven't even told him yet. So I'm going to start off. I'm going to go head-to-head with him in Group A, but agree with you in Group A. Denny Hamlin, 270. Just that he has been solid, consistent. If Denny keeps not making mistakes on pit lane, Denny will be fine. I'm going to go Group C head-to-head against you. I'm taking Chase Elliott, Group C. I told you, every week I'm picking a Chase Elliott pick because he's going to start picking these up, and I think this is honestly where I think he's going to get me possibly the win. I had him for a top 3 and then decided to go just on the head-to-head. I'm going into Group E, Austin Dillon. I said that was one that popped out in my head right off the bat. And then Group F.
Well, you could deny us by catching you in Group F.
You know what? I'm going to switch it.
Always switching on the fly. Okay.
Scratching out. Jeff Motley's mad at me. I am switching to Ryan Preece.
Oh, okay. All right.
It was a toss-up between those two. And I can't. First of all, I hope I lose this bet. I hope Michael McDowell wins, and I should at least get a point for charity or something like that because I don't want to jinx Michael McDowell, so I'm dumping off that. And then my last pick, I also am hedging my bet with Ford. I'm taking the 255 on Ford. I like that one.
Well, from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate you switching the McDowell pick.
I have to. I can't do it. I don't want to give him the jinx. So that's our show for this week. Wyatt, I think Motley's back in studio next week, right?
Yes, he's back in studio next week, and then he's off the week after.
That's right. And I'm in studio next week. So we actually have both of us here next week.
Because it's a party.
I was going to say, it's about time we all three were here for the same week. With that, we'll break down everything that is Michigan that we just had, and then we'll talk about the Indianapolis Road Course and the return of Shane Van Gisbergen. Get me some more money, Shane. Talk to you guys next week, y'all.